ardent explorers and invaders of sugar bowls. Like us, they are social animals, living in colonies as we do in families. Their somewhat amiable nature is not limited to their own species, for they are not reluctant to establish close and at times complex relationships with other insects and even plants. Within their colonies, they are divided into castes depending on what task they perform. Their tasks are limited to work and reproduction and are determined by the ant's diet. As hard as it is to believe, ants don't multitask. All over your house, around your garden, floating in your glass of water, scampering up your leg, biting your toe. Tonight, our mundane little friends, the ants, will dance for you. Sri Lankan traditional dance does not have gestures or facial expressions that convey particular meanings, unlike Indian dance forms like Odissi and Bharatanatyam. Therefore, in order to bring a particular insect or character to life, we have to incorporate natural gestures and expressions, or Swabhavika Mudra, to tell the story. It was Chitrasena and Vajira's pioneering efforts of establishing the first school of dance back in 1944, bringing our traditional dance and ritual dancers to the modern stage, and of course paving the way for female dancers to take the stage, that culminated in the creation of a new genre, a national ballet, where our traditional dance was utilized to convey a story. Vajira's children's ballets continue that genre and were classics through the ages, including Hapana, Rankikili, and more recently, Berahanda. Today, we are proud to see that heritage continue with Kumbhikatava, conceived by Chitrasena and Vajira's daughter Anjalika, and produced in collaboration with star pupil Mahesh.
හරිම ආසයි ළමයින්ට උගන්වන්න. ඉතින් මගේ තාත්තා මම කලායතනයේ පොඩි ළමයින්ට උගන්වනවා දැක්කම කිව්වා ඔයා හරි ලස්සනට පොඩි ළමයින්ට උගන්වනවා. ඔයාට ඒ මාර්ගයේ ගියොත් මං හිතන්නේ හුඟක් හොඳයි කියලා. ඉතින් මං හිතුවා මොන්ටිසෝරි පාසලකට ගිහිල්ලා මොන්ටිසෝරි කෝස් එක ඉගෙනගෙන ළමයි එක්ක වැඩ කරන්න කියලා. ඉතින් මං මෙහෙම වැඩ කරද්දී දවසක් මේ කූඹි කතාව පොතකින් අරගෙන මේක මං නිර්මාණය කළා පොඩි අවුරුදු 4 ළමයි එක්ක. පසු කාලෙක මං ඉතින් හුඟක් දැකලා තියෙනවානේ මගේ අම්මයි තාත්තගේ නිර්මාණය. ඒ වගේම මගේ අම්මා කුඩා ළමයි එක්ක බොහෝ මුද්‍රා නාට්‍ය කෙරුවා. මං ඒ අතරේ ජීවත් වෙනකොට මට හරි ආස හිතුණා කවදා හරි මමත් මෙහෙම සත්තුන් එක්ක මුද්‍රා නාට්‍යයක් කරන්න ඕනේ.
Inspired by a Russian children's story, Anjalika started creating tonight's ballet Kumbhikatava with her students. The story is about a family of ants who face life-threatening obstacles, but who, through perseverance, prevail in the end. Don't be fooled. The duration of the ballet is not a reflection of the amount of work it took to complete, because Kumbhikatava is many years in the making. Most of the students started off playing minor roles, but have all grown up now, taking on principal ones in tonight's performance. What started out as a simple in-class exercise turned into one of the biggest creative endeavors the Chitrasena Kalayatana has taken on. For the making of Kumbhikatava was also a carefully choreographed dance in its own right. Once it was decided that the ballet would be performed, one of the first things the directors pondered on was what the costumes were going to be. Mahesh took on the responsibility of designing them and executing the work of bringing them to life. According to Mahesh, the first question on his mind was how to transform humans into animals without constricting the dancers' greatest tool of expression, their bodies. after much careful contemplation, Mahesh decided to take a realist approach and began to make sketches of his ideas looking to the natural world and choreography for inspiration. Slowly, the black and white sketches gained color, and Mahesh finally gained a glimpse of what his creations would look like on stage when he turned them into 3D computer graphic designs. Once Mahesh completed the costume of one animal completely, the dancers got together to make the rest. They painted, they sewed. Some of them even discovered they possessed latent artistic talents that exuded from the moment they took a needle or a paintbrush into their hands for the first time. One costume that is bound to delight everyone in the audience tonight is that of the beetle. As I mentioned, ants extend their friendship to other insects they cohabit with, and the beetle is, at least in tonight's performance, one of them. When Mahesh listened to the music that had been chosen for the beetle's dance, he thought it had an African flavor to it. This gave him the idea to design the beetle's costume using the styles and colors of traditional African tribal wear as inspiration. Once Mahesh finalized the design for the costume, he enlarged a drawing of its shape and obtained a block. Once he had the block, the beetle's shell was made out of cane and covered with a fabric padded and quilted only around the edge to prevent the cane frame from showing through. The shell was then painted and is worn by the dancer on his back, like a school bag. We were hoping to show you the completed beetle costume, but it looks like our little friend is camera shy. Oh dear. I hope he doesn't get stage fright and not turn up for the show tonight. The costumes could not be worn for the first time at the dress rehearsal. It was imperative that the dancers got accustomed to moving comfortably in their costumes, as most of them are, like the Beatles, fashioned out of cane frames. In some cases, the movements had to be modified to fit the costumes, and in others the opposite took place. But in spite of the difficulties faced trying to acquire compatibility between the costumes and the movements, the dancers were adamant on achieving a perfect balance without subordinating the movements to the confines of the costumes completely. The dancers you will see tonight are busy little insects on and off the stage. The fairy tale community portrayed in the performance is, in reality, part of a larger community, that of the Chitrasena Kalayathanaya. The virtues of diligence, dedication and hard work established by Chitrasena and Vajira are being preserved and strengthened under the guidance of Upeka, Anjalika and Heshma. Within the Kalayathanaya's nurturing walls a different system of values exist. Values that may be considered outdated in our supposedly modern society. The principle on which all its values rest, one, is simple: the raw love of the arts. When students learn dance, they learn to express themselves not only with their bodies, but with their entire being. What makes this particular performance special is that the whole cast worked together to give it life. In a world that sees only finished products, and is mostly ignorant of the challenging process of producing them, the dedicated teachers of the Chitrasena Kalayathanaya are giving their students the opportunity to not just dance, but to realize their true artistic potential on every level. Most importantly, the Kalayathanaya is reconnecting its students with the quintessential joy of expressing the beauty and the imperfections of the human spirit. For how can we, as human beings, understand ourselves unless we embrace both our strength and vulnerability?